I have the opportunity to chat with Victoria Gamerman, who is the global head of digital transformation of the digital transformation COE at Boehringer Ingelheim. And really excited to have Victoria here today. We're going to be talking about strategic pathways to digital health, and you sharing insights from clinical systems and digital operation leadership. Would you like to share a little more background about yourself and your role and what you're doing?
So thank you for that. So as Amy said, I'm the head of our Digital Transformation Center of Excellence. And first of all, of course, the opinions expressed here are my own and do not represent those of my employer. And in addition to leading our digital transformation organization, we have a couple of really important pillars in the organization. We have an element around really intentionally stepping into where do we choose to go for the digital technologies that we pursue, the data, the AI space, and how that all works together. There's a pillar around how do we prototype and test and scout for the opportunities that are out there. So we really know in advance of stepping in and doing maybe a, MVP, right, a good pilot, what we want to do and what are the needs that the organization has and our ecosystem that we operate in. And then, of course, there's the components around having a really good, robust, reliable data foundation and a strong ability to create analytic solutions that actually help to inform a decision, whether it's maybe to confirm, right, or maybe change the path of going forward. And so from that perspective, I think it's a very exciting space to be in. We also, in my free time, I also mentor life science startups at NYU Stern's Endless Frontier Labs in the space of data and AI strategy. And so I think from my perspective, this is a really on-point conversation we're going to have today.
Awesome. Yes. And so you talked a little about the pillars of the direction that you're going and your strategy. Can you go a little bit deeper on those and maybe talk also about how, one of the biggest challenges too is how do you validate these areas and then take them to scale? Because that's really the holy grail of all of this.
Absolutely. There's a lot of really good components to what I think you're saying. And the way that we've been thinking about it is really looking at it as a research-based innovation approach. Right. And really bringing that research, right? We're so good at that research, really bringing that also to the core of how we do innovation. One of the most important things I would say when it comes to doing this is having a good and strong sense of purpose. For me, it's that patient centricity that is, what it comes down to. We all know somebody, right? We are patients in many ways ourselves. And so really having the patient-centric view at the core and how a patient experiences within their world is incredibly important. Then, of course, it's around, well, what are the right digital technologies we would want to leverage? And that goes back to this decision sciences piece around what do we have in our strategy that says we want to develop in XYZ directions, and how does it actually relate to the lines of business and the value and the business needs that they have? It depends on the sort of maturity of organizations, whether they have a data strategy that is separate from the business strategy or one that is integrated. But at the end of the day, translating the business needs and making sure that they are close in time and also having that balance of being able to do, for example, use cases and addressing things as they come, as well as taking the time, effort, and energy in your strategy and then the implementation of it to also build out the future needs and build out that foundation that will be leveraged later, right? Because anytime you have this first comer, right, the first comer always takes a little bit more investment, a little bit more time. And so the more you can balance, and we try to do that, right, the more we balance our initial use cases and those technologies we want to test and pilot with those things that we think are foundational and that will be used over and over again, the more we have. You also mentioned, Amy, scalability, and I think that's another really excellent component. Scalability and the ability to adapt is increasingly important. If you are a one compound organization, right, you have different sets of needs to scale versus then as you expand and you maybe do a particular activity more than 2-3 times, right? That's a perfect opportunity where we can look at how do we scale something. There's a great expression I heard, so this is not my own thinking, but it's that what AI is good at is usually what people are bad at, and what people are bad at, AI is good at, right? And so that's a chance to really lean into understanding the process that is used today and figuring out, okay, if this is a step that has to be repeated, right, how can we make that step more automated or scale in a way that doesn't require sort of bums in seats, right, more people manual effort, but actually we can leverage the technology and the opportunities we have to really be able to make the most of the digital opportunities we see in the ecosystem. And then maybe the last piece, I would say, that is an important part to have in the strategic vision is to also lean into and think about the continuous learning. There is so much that happens in the environment around digital technologies and the AI that we're seeing that really is going at a very rapid pace. So this approach and mindset of continuously learning and being open to, and also creating the space and the time in the organizations to learn is, I think, an important one to have directly in. And that also helps upskill the whole entire organization.
Absolutely. And I have to just, something you said early on in your response, I really love, really it's all about taking that patient-centric approach first. And then how does a technology support that, not the other way around? Because I think we've all seen where there's a lot of shiny objects out there that because people want to play around with it, but it isn't really solving for the customer's problem that then has to tie to the business as well. So I think that's an excellent starting point for the work that you're doing and how you're doing it. Can you talk a little bit about, when we talk about these new technologies, you talked about identifying them and testing them. Which ones are you looking at and how are you evaluating them in light of the needs of your customers as well as the business?
We're actually looking at quite a lot of different types of technologies. There are the patient-facing technologies that you could imagine would impact a trial. There's the HCP-facing, site-facing technologies. One of our big components that you can read about also in the news is the fact that we're working very closely with Viva in order to bring on that technology internally, which really allows us to upskill and upgrade our infrastructure and how our internal data is also connected to each other. Then, of course, there's also a lot of different technologies that I get very excited about, such as different AI agents, and really taking the bite-sized pieces to have the environment where we can safely explore, because we work in a very regulated space, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we need to be able to monitor and understand and explain the whole end-to-end component of the conduct of a clinical trial. It's a very important space where we have to be very careful and pragmatic of what we do. So creating then a separate space where in a well-governed environment, what data you can safely use to explore a new technology, what you can connect to what that is protected and does not intervene until it is ready and intentionally decided to do so and released with the core processes is a very important success factor I would encourage others to consider. So there is a huge, I think, component of looking at the life cycle then in that safe space of thinking about what do you need for ideation, right? Typically an initial first step, a business idea, let's say, comes or one hears about it, such as I, as a trial manager within a particular country, get questions around the protocol from the sites, right? And so even internally, you could imagine that a person might have to go, they of course are familiar, but they want to go and look further to get more details. So there's all sorts of opportunities for wins like that. The ability to take data from tabular form and actually already pre-populate information into other documents you might use. So you minimize the effort of having to manually look at reference, cross-reference. But especially the wins today in my observation and the trends I've seen are also where the human can remain in the loop. The responsibility ultimately is still with the human, and there's a lot more openness if you do that to bring in some novel technologies. Whereas if you now start to delegate decision making to digital technologies, I find the barrier there is a lot higher because of the regulated space we work in. It's really in that patient centricity, right? You really want to make sure you get the correct information to the correct people.
100%. Victoria, again, like all my other guests, the other guests, I would love to talk for another hour or two, but we are tight on time. But thank you so much. Any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to share before we close out this part of the session?
I would certainly say, in the interest of time, if anyone wants to reach out, I think the LinkedIn information is there. So happy to connect. And, I think this is a great space, keeping the patient centricity, patient at the core, and really making sure we're solving intentional business problems with the technology we use, rather than, having a hammer and seeing everything as a nail is going to be the first steps to success.
Well, congrats on all the work you're doing to transform, the healthcare in your company as well as the broader ecosystem. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.